Take the matter under advisement, refer the matter to staff or a committee for future report, or direct the matter to be placed on an upcoming agenda. Anybody want to speak?
Yes, I would like to speak, but I don't want this to cut into my time. I want to let you know that I have clarification here. I went back and listened to the tape, and I am 24 seconds short. That's the amount that, since you interrupted me, President Klinker, and a number of people overtalked me, I should be allowed an extra 24 seconds tonight since I was short of that last time.
Can you give her a minute? She just got those 24 seconds.
Yep.
Give her a minute more.
You want to speak your 3 minutes? Go ahead.
Well, I'd like 3 minutes and 24 seconds. Is that right?
3 minutes from
3 minutes, Robin. It says 3 minutes.
Duly noted. The following is, I'm reading from President Don Klinker's deposition that was taken during the lawsuit depositions.
Oh, that matter was already settled.
This is about Robert's rules. The questions are posed by my attorney, Larry Frost. Okay, Little Falls City Council operates under Robert's Rules of Order, doesn't it? Sort of. This is Don Klinker now. Sort of. We don't go by it strictly. Frost, could you explain that, please? Well, I guess I don't. Our attorney said Robert's Rules of Order are, what do you call it? I don't know the name that you can go by, but we don't strictly go by Robert's Rules of Order because it's for a big organization, not for a little organization. Frost, all right, is there or is there not a city rule that states that Robert's Rules of Order is the guideline, is the operating rules for the city council? Klinker, not that I'm aware of. Frost, okay, so it's your understanding that you go by Robert's Rules of Order when you want to, but you don't have to stick to it? Klinker, I don't think we don't have to stick by it. I don't think we have to even go by it. Frost, okay, so earlier you said Robert's Rules was there for a guideline or something, but you don't use it at all. Is that what you're saying now? Klinker nods. Frost, so what rules does the city council operate under then? Klinker, just the regular rules, I suppose. I'm not an attorney, so I don't know what you would call it. Frost, well, but you preside over the council meetings. Klinker, that's exactly right. You're Frost. You're what most people would call the chairman of the meeting. Klinker, yes. Frost, and I think your title, for the record, your title is the president of the city council, correct? Klinker, right. Frost, but it's the same function, you run the meeting, right? Klinker, right. Frost, how do you decide what you will allow and what not to allow? Klinker, we follow our agenda items. Frost, but how do you decide whether people, for example, get to speak or not? Is there a rule about that? Or do you just decide on the spot? Klinker, we don't have any rules about it. Frost, so you just decide on the spot whether someone speaks or not? Klinker, yeah, if it's pertinent to what we're talking about. Frost, if someone submits an agenda item, would you consider what they have to say pertinent to that agenda item? Klinker, not necessarily.
I think your minutes are up.
You have no
Thank
rules
you.
which guides you in deciding who gets to speak, is that correct? Klinker,
We
I
have
guess not.
rules, you are not listening to them right now.
Your 3 minutes are up. Anybody else want to speak? If not, we'll go to the first item of information. Tim Terrell, Mississippi Headwaters. Tim?
Hello, Mayor.
Or use the podium.
Guess I could go
Chair of the
here.
podium or whatever you want.
All right. Great. I'd just like to introduce myself. I'm Tim Terrell from the Mississippi Headwaters Board. I've been actually just hired in November 15th of last year, and I'm here just to kind of talk to you about an opportunity that we have for you. just to give some background, the federal government came with some guidelines to you all MS4 cities, and you are an MS4 city. You can ask anyone what the definition of MS4 is, but you are. And they're stringent upon, those rules came down to the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, and the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency is now putting some of these rules on all the MS4 cities. And just real quick, two of them are the MS4 cities required to develop and implement a stormwater protection plan to reduce the discharge of pollutants from their storm sewer system to the maximum extent possible. And an MS4 must identify communities and measurable goals with each minimum control measure. So those are some rules that currently they're not funded. You just basically is an unfunded mandate to you. Well, at the Mississippi Headwaters Board, we're not regulatory. We're not one of these things that go around and enforce this type of work. But what we did notice is that cities in the first 400 miles of Mississippi, because that's kind of our area, you have some issues that you have to deal with. You've got a mandate that you've got to fulfill, and I noticed that a lot of cities, they have the technical expertise, but time and workload, that's always an issue that cities are dealing with. So the Mississippi Headwaters Board wants to help out. One of the things that we're doing is I'm going around there's 5 MS4 cities in the Headwaters area, and we're presenting the opportunity for a grant to do what we'll call a stormwater assessment. Now, I just have some ideas on what it does, but basically, we would get an engineer from a company to go around, assess your area in Little Falls, look at where your stormwater is at, and come up with many different options. And there's kind of an example of what they did in Baxter. They went around, and they were actually kind of a pioneer where they went forward with an engineering company, and they basically got some options, because that's what some of the things that is. And actually, just by doing this survey, you're helping meet the requirements of an MS4 permit. So just by participating, it's showing progress towards the goal. So if you just look at it, and I don't want to really get into the details, but this is kind of something that was done in Baxter. They gave them number one, there was a new pond, a stormwater pond. It will reduce, they were targeting phosphorus, and it will reduce 49% of it, and the installation cost was $109,000. But then the other ones were kind of neighborhood retrofits, which were basically rain gardens put with curb cuts, kind of like more of a community design. And by the way, all this is specific to Baxter. So with you, it might be similar, it might be different, but you as city council, a lot of times, you just like to have options. What are my options? What can I do? And what this study does is it just go around and just give you options here as far as what to do. And what we're doing is I'm going to go around, talk to the city, see who's interested. We have a limited budget, but from that, we'll determine if it needs to be a grant process or something along that line. But basically, all that we ask from you is about 10% of your time to fulfill the grant, and then we'll have and most of that is just like, here's our information, here's our GIS, stuff like that. So, I mean, this is something that's pretty much required of you. You can do it yourself, or you can hopefully have a chance and the opportunity to work with our money. We see this as a great opportunity, because at the end of this, whoever gets it, we're going to get all the 5 MS4 cities together, and we're just going to talk, what did you find out? And you can really learn from each other quite a bit just by talking, because when new rules come out, everybody at staff kind of like, what does this mean? And it's a little bit, what are you doing? And so this gives them opportunities and stuff like that. And hopefully the Mississippi Headwaters Board, this is an opportunity to work with you and things along that line in a capacity that we really haven't really worked with you before. So, do you have any questions?
Well, Tim, I'd really like if you'd explain what an MS4 is, because I know there's many people out and potentially here on the council that really don't understand what that means.
Sure. An MS4 is a designation for a city, is what that is. And it has to deal with population base and some other factors. Rochester is an MS4, Minneapolis, St. Paul is an MS4. If you want to think of it, it's more of your larger cities and stuff like that. And it has to deal with stormwater and things along that line. And so this is the newer thing that's kind of coming down, these new rules from the federal government. And we just see, as the Mississippi Headwaters Board, see this as an opportunity to really, work with you and to show you, and really just, it's more of collaboration than anything. But our board made a very strategic and very punctual decision to say, very punctual decision to really, let's start reaching out to the city. We work with the counties. Our board consists of 8 county commissioners, and some of them are here tonight, and also, so we deal with some of the same issues, and we understand that. You call it stormwater here, in the county it's called drainage, but you're a little more closed system than they are, but there's some principles, and I think we all can learn from each other. And so that answers your question as far as
It does. And, recently I know that Lauren Boyd and Land Use and myself attended the meeting in Walker, and which was very informational. A lot of good information came out, and the fact that the Mississippi Headwaters Board has become very active, through the years it kind of slowed down, but that they've really got a good board now, and they're being very progressive in doing the studies and all that kind of stuff for them for potentially federal funding, because when you go after these grants, they want to know that those studies were done and what those studies contain before you get a grant. So you guys have done a really good job on that.
Thank you.
What kind of budget do you have for this?
We're looking about $40,000, and we're not quite sure, what it will cost. Smaller cities will, cost less than larger cities, but so we're just kind of getting a feel for what a total project cost would cost us. Look at how quickly or if we can get all 5 cities, great, we'll do it. Any other questions?
Is there an application form that you have, or do we send you a letter?
Right now, I'm just kind of filling it out. What I like from the council is this is something that, it's more of a direction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we want you to proceed on this. And then once we figure out the numbers, then I would, if it comes to a grant opportunity, I would, that and have to go down.
And I don't, Jerry, but you work a lot with, especially now with our water and stuff, and trying to figure out different areas and stuff. What do you think about this?
Well, it's a win-win if there's grant dollars available, that's for sure. The MS4 requirements are still there. Tim, I think, has worked with some engineering firms more than others, and I think part of that, if we're interested, and I assume we would be, we would send something back and say, hey, we're interested and learn a little bit more about it. I mean, there's many miles from the city, so I'm not exactly sure what all the recovery that we would just need more detail.
I think, anytime that we can get grant money to investigate cleaner water and cleaner air and all that type of stuff, I think we need to aggressively try to do those things. So.
And this isn't money, this is just a planning study. This is what it is. Actually, I went last night to the city of Baxter, or not last night, last week to the city of Baxter, and they had done this, so they knew what they were going to do. They chose to do a feasibility study on the pond, meaning exact dollars, so they can really have a tight grant application for Clean Water Fund, federal dollars, something like this. So this is kind of the first step in a process to really get the ball rolling.
Good.
Thanks, Tim.
Mr. Chair, may I speak?
Sure, Kevin, I'd like
Sure.
everybody to hear from you.
Thank you for your time tonight. I just wanted to talk a little bit about what's really happening with the Mississippi Headwaters Board. Since we hired Tim, the state appropriated us enough money to hire a new director, which is great. And the thing what we're really looking at now is looking at obtaining as many grant funds as we can. And I think Tim says there's a possibility from different organizations to pull in about $2.2 million next year we're going to be applying for. So this is a real good opening into getting you guys your studies done for the city. And at that point, that would then, once that's done, it needs to be in place to access some of that grant funding. So we're really working at that. I really pushed him and encouraged him to really involve Little Falls. I believe Baxter has done their study already, Brainerd has done theirs, and has Bemidji already? I don't know about Bemidji is, but I think we are one of the couple of cities left on the upper Mississippi that hasn't done that study yet. So they're basically in place and have all the stuff in place to basically get the grants and get the funding from the federal and the state government. So just really want to work with you as a city in getting some of this looked at so we can pull in whatever we need to help you with the stormwater stuff. That's becoming a big push. And I don't know if some of you know this, but the DNR is really trying to prevent the cities down in the Twin Cities from putting in any more wells. They're really pushing for them to start drawing their water, drinking water and utilization water out of the Mississippi. So there's really a push to really take a look at addressing the water issues up in this part of the state because they're really going to be needing to draw that water out of the Mississippi. So this is all good stuff. There should be funding coming this way to help us address those issues with Little Falls, and if that helps, that would be great. So, all right. Thank you.
Thanks, Dale. Bernie's not coming?
No, they're not Bernie's. but-
Bernie's not here.
Bernie's not here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Tom Plouffe. This is Kim Bisstock. We're here on behalf of the Boys and Girls Club in place of Bernie, who's out of town. I think Bernie gave you a little preliminary request a while back, and we're here to talk a little bit. I'm trying not to duplicate too much what Bernie has told you about the club. But I may a little bit, and I apologize for that. And then we're going to get to some harder numbers to let you folks make a decision. The club started in about 2007, just a brief history of the club. It started in about 2007. Area priest and an area businessman were noticing a lot of kids hanging out after hours, seeming to have a lot of idle time on their hands. And they first one of the priests came to me and asked me about that and about them playing on their playground equipment and things like that. And those people spurred an idea of getting a Boys and Girls Club started. And that didn't take shape until 2009 when the club opened up. But they looked and saw, you could take these kids with idle time on their hands, which usually leads to no good or something bad or getting hurt, and then trying to put it to something more positive and getting a good structured environment like the Boys and Girls Club offers. Our Boys and Girls Club, we feel it's been open for about 5 years, and we think that it's been doing very well. It's become kind of a model for this other Boys and Girls Clubs in the state. Our attendance rates are more than we could have ever expected. We're averaging over 100 kids a day during the days that school are in session, or the days that the club are open. We do a little poll of the kids when they first join the club. They have to fill out some information cards, and we know that 82% of the kids are from families that get free or reduced lunch. Almost half of them are from one-parent households. Some of these kids just need a little bit of guidance or a little bit of a push to get back on track or to get going in the right direction. And as a community as a whole, we think that would benefit for having a Boys and Girls Club in their area. It's Boys and Girls Club of Morrison County. We are drawing them from not just the city here. The Boys and Girls Club have track records of when they're in an area that the